Welcome, everyone, to the Gardenerd Tip of the Week podcast, where experts from around the world talk shop, share stories, and offer their favorite tip. I'm your host, Christy Wilhelmi. My guest this week hails from Puerto Rico, where she encourages people to grow plants to benefit their health and well-being. Perla Sofia Curbelo Santiago is the founder of AgroChic, a gardening lifestyle platform in Spanish, and has the website My Garden Break in English as well. She is also the author of a new book, Verdura, Living the Garden Life. Her book has been published in Spanish, her native tongue, as well as English for audiences around the world. Welcome to the podcast, Perla.
Thank you. Gracias, Christy. Thank you so much. Thank you for that introduction. And of course, to be here with you. It's a thrilling experience.
Well, we know each other through GardenCom International,
Yes.
where you've been involved with the annual conference during lockdown when it was virtual. And I think that's when I really got my first impression of you. Your enthusiasm for gardening and plants really shines through. And I love that you're promoting gardening for well-being. So I'm really excited to talk about that today. When did your connection between plants and well-being begin for you?
I think when I was little, I of course I didn't have the word for it, but I always felt so good when I was surrounded by plants. And since I was a little kid, I remember going around the neighborhood, picking flowers, not mine necessarily. And I used to ask for permission. Sometimes it was granted, other times I just grabbed them because I wanted to go back home and make little bouquets. And just having the bouquet of flowers give me that sense of joy that I feel very good at it. And eventually, as I was growing up, I always loved to ride my bicycle around neighborhoods, and every time far from home, and look into people's gardens. And for me it was, growing up in the 80s, it was the Goonies, and it was these Indiana Jones movies
That's
influence,
right.
where you were like, oh my God, I want to have adventures. And I remember going through, little hills around the neighborhood, feeling like, okay, this is a great adventure for me. I did it by myself or with kids of my neighborhood. But since I was a kid, I always knew that being in nature, it was my place to be. And again, going back as an adult and putting words to it, definitely, the connection is, it was always there.
You always had your hands in the soil, or at least in the plants.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you live in Puerto Rico. Can you, and I just want to remind everyone, this is part of the United States. It is a territory of the United States.
You don't need a passport to come to Puerto Rico.
I'm so excited. Someday I have to come and see you in person.
Please.
That would be fun. Can you share a little bit about your garden and where you grow?
Of course. Well, currently I live in the northeast part of Puerto Rico, and I live very close to the coast. So there's a beach in about 5 minutes. So you can imagine my garden. It's exposed it is very windy. It's very salty. And I live in a walk-up building in the first floor. So I'm lucky to have two gardens. I have one in the front part of the house, which needs a little more care. And then I have the backyard, and which is in the form of an L. And there is where I have more of my engagement in the garden. And of course, the book displays a lot of my work. And so I say that I have the garden that I have today because of the book, because it pushed me definitely to do things outdoors. And because most of the time I used to do it in the front part. Then the pandemic came. I did more things indoors because I was giving workshop online. So I wanted to showcase what I was doing. So it was easier. And then I was like, let's start doing more things in the backyard. And of course, the garden as having this form of an L is not that big, but it's enough. Space is almost 100, around 100 feet.
100 square feet?
It's no, I don't think so.
Okay.
You know, in distance, you know.
I
like,
see. Okay.
And so when you go outside from I have it divided the garden in like garden rooms, because it was like a strategy, because every time that I look into the garden, I was like, oh my God, I don't know. I was stressed about what should I do into the garden. And this is something that happens to a lot of people, senior gardeners, people, experienced gardeners, and people also that want to garden more, but sometimes it's like, okay, I start in this area, but you start thinking about the next area. So one of the things that I did was like, let me divide the garden like little pockets, little garden rooms. So when you go outside from the kitchen, there's the kitchen garden, not necessarily because I have things that I use to cook, but it's the specific area,
the
and
location.
I have the location. So you can see from the kitchen a plantain tree.
Ooh.
That I have. Not yet I have the fruit of it, but I also have a soursop tree, and in that area I do have a bird feeder and a bird bath, because that's something that I really wanted for the garden, to have to be able to sit down and bring in the wildlife, and also because it's an urban area, so you want to disguise the urban sounds and things like that. Then you turn right, and there's the bougainvillea path, and I have a bougainvillea, a pink one, and then a hedge of penny royale.
Wait, what was that?
The
A
penny
hedge?
royale, mental collision.
Penny royal?
Penny royal.
Okay.
Yes. That's my pronunciation of the penny royal. Penny royal.
I
Yes.
love it. If I can't eat it, I don't know what it is, so I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I love that one. And in that area, I consider the second room, I have like a love seat. So now I can sit down, and even when summer was very it was so warm down here in Puerto Rico, it was nice because the bougainvillea vine made this nice arc. And so I could even enjoy being in the garden in that at noon. Nice. And then next I have I'm taking you through the garden.
You're taking us on a tour. I love it.
Garden.
That's great.
And then the next room that I have, it's a little room that I call a nook garden, which is featured in the book. And we all have these little corners that you don't know what to do, and sometimes you end up using it as a storage area that okay, I'm supposed to put this in another area, but you end up adding more things, and when you see it's the corner it has a lot of things. So I put a little chair there, and I call it the nook area because also it has a little garden, but you can hide from, if someone stands from the kitchen garden, they can't see me,
Nice.
And that privacy, again, something that I brought from when I was a kid, you like to hide things like that. So in front of that, there's there's more space there, and I call it now the passion fruit garden, because I have a passion fruit vine that I'm fighting with an iguana that comes into my garden now and then, and I can see it from my room, and I see the iguanas, in the trellis, like, and I'm like, I know you're eating the passion fruit.
So iguanas eat passion fruit?
The leaves.
The leaves.
Exactly. So
that's hilarious and
yeah,
disappointing at the same time.
Exactly. So those are the things that you are like, this is why I love gardening. You never know what's coming. What's coming. And then as you move to the next room, there's the rose bed, or the pollinator and the pollinator's garden, that it's starting to turn. So you have then a corridor where I have different fruit trees, like pomegranate. Everything is in containers. I have a fig tree in a container. I have a roble tree, which is like a pink oak, that we call it here. It is I have the scientific name, just in case.
The Latin name. Tell me what that is.
The Latin name, yes, Tabebuia rosea.
So Tabebuia rosea.
Yes, that's we call it roble. And in that area, in that corridor, I have another bird feeder, and I call it, and there's another spot like the meditation garden. Again, in that area, it is featured in the book. So that's my garden. It's a long L, and it is apparently it seems like it's a huge one, but I tried to make it interesting, dividing it so I could enjoy the garden, and also I could say, I'm gonna work in this area, and once I finish, I move to the next one without feeling that, stress out that, oh, I haven't done a lot over there.
Nice. And I think well, let me ask you this. What's the hardiness zone there where you live?
We are in over 11 and 11, 10, depending in which area of Puerto Rico, and but most of the time is between 10 and 13.
Okay.
And now with the new with the
shift,
the shift, definitely it is hotter.
Yeah.
And sometimes in early fall, it didn't feel like it was fall. For me, it was like it's still summer.
Yeah.
And so
that's here in Los Angeles, we're in zone 10B, and it stays hot through October, and we're not planting cool season crops until early November. This time, it used to be September, but now it's late October, early November. So do you grow year round because you're in a subtropical / tropical? Yeah.
Yes, we can definitely, because of course, that there are gonna be certain plants that it's better to plant them in the fresh, cool weather. And the best weather here in Puerto Rico is definitely from September until early spring. But again, we are also in September tends to be the hurricane season, the peak of the hurricane season, which it is 6 months. And sometimes no, always you are like, should I or not? You never know what's gonna happen, so you go for it, and this is one of the great things that and virtues that has gardeners around the world, that you adapt, and of course you do what you have to do, and if it comes something that disrupted, well, you make amends, change.
That's what I guess every gardener is dealing with, their own particular brand of crazy weather. So hurricanes and a lot, it's funny, a lot of people are like, I don't want to live in California. You have earthquakes. I'm like, at least we don't know about them until they happen. just like a surprise and then it's over. And most of the time it's
Yeah.
not a big deal. But hurricanes are like, oh God, I've never lived in a place where there are hurricanes, although we had our first cyclone warning
Yes.
in the fall of 2023.
Mhm.
And that was a little like, oh, are we going to be in for something weird here? I don't know. We
Yeah.
just got a lot of rain. So now, do you have what grows really well in Puerto Rico that would make the rest of us jealous? I guess all the tropicals and subtropicals, but do you have any favorites that you like to grow?
Well, definitely the plantains, the bananas are great, and
Mhm.
every citric tree that you can grow. We have a lot of vegetable in the south part of Puerto Rico, great areas that you definitely want to, peppers, the
Mhm.
watermelons, onions, and papayas you can grow here. So it is a blessing to have great weather. But yes, tropicals are, tropical fruits. It
Yeah.
is the number one thing. And so here in my backyard, I do not have a lot of edibles in
Mhm.
terms of fruits, but I have, as you know, as I mentioned, the soursop fruit, which is in a 30-gallon container. And
And what
and
do you do with soursop? I'm so curious because that's not something I'm familiar with really at all.
it is a sweet and creamy fruit, and you can do shakes, and you can eat it fresh. And I like to eat the pulp of the fruit,
Mhm.
um, very cold. It's very refreshing.
Nice.
And you can do frozens, we call it limbers, with R.
Limbers?
Yeah, limber, Limber, limber.
Lim
You do like a juice, and then you put it in the freezer,
So it's like a popsicle.
like a popsicle, but in a glass, a plastic glass. And then
Okay.
when it's frozen, you turn it around, and then you start eating from the bottom. It is a classic. It
Ah,
is
very
something
nice.
classic. Yeah. So that definitely, it's a nice fruit to enjoy, and it's not something that a lot of people have in their backyard. But here in the island, that one of the things that is very common is to have something. If you have a backyard, you definitely have. There's a lot of people who has the plantains. They have avocado tree,
Mhm.
in different kind of fruit trees. Um, there's another breadfruit, definitely,
Breadfruit.
that,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
another one we don't really grow here. It's unusual. Tell us about
And
that.
and one of the great things of the breadfruit is you can grow it, and keep it, small, but that tree is huge. It,
They
it
get
can
big.
grow over 50 feet um tall, and it give you, at least here, it give you breadfruit the whole year. It is, of all the fruit trees, is the one that it keeps going, it keeps giving you. And that is something that I really want to add to my garden,
Mhm.
definitely, because you can do tostones, which are, the plantain, and the
Uh-huh.
fried plant, like the fried plantain. So
Hmm.
you can do it with the breadfruit. You can do the mofongo, which is a very Puerto Rican traditional um, dish. So you can have a mofongo if you don't have plantain, which happened when Hurricane Maria um, hit Puerto Rico in 2017. We lost a lot of plantain plantations.
Uh,
So we have we a lot of restaurants rely on breadfruit, which we call it in Spanish pana.
Pana. Okay.
Yes, Pana,
I just
pana.
want to say I so appreciate the fact that you are translating in your head as we're speaking because I I- I've taken a lot of second language courses and I can't really retain any of it. And so I appreciate when someone is doing an interview not in their native tongue. So thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah, it gave me the opportunity to practice my English.
It's amazing. It's so much better than my Spanish and my Italian. God. Yeah. So yeah.
Possiamo parlare italiano anche.
Sì, un po'.
Un pochino.
Un pochino.
Yeah, I love language. And, you know, when I was a kid, I dreamt of going to La Sorbonne and study French, but also I wanted to work for the United Nations. And of course, when I went to college, I studied Italian. And I remember when I studied Italian, the first time I went to Italy, I was afraid that the Italian that I learned at the university wasn't the same. So
yeah, well,
but I always love languages.
It's funny because in Italy, the further north you go, well, you know, from Rome north, the standard Italian that you learn in class is what is spoken generally, but the further south you go, the more it's a little bit off, and not off, but different. And there's colloquialisms and regional dialects that just sound. I mean, my husband grew up in Naples, and he doesn't understand Napolitano at all because it's completely different. So anyway, we are digressing like crazy. So let me get back to this. So let's dive into your book, because you put together this book that's comprised of 30 projects that gardeners can create in their, you know, to fill their homes and gardens with joy and whimsy. And I think that's going to be really appealing to especially young gardeners who, and I mean adult young gardeners, but even kids. But, you know, a lot of people, especially during the pandemic, took on plants as pets. And they love the idea of making a project of a small space, of a small size in their garden. So how did you develop these projects? You mentioned a little earlier that this was already kind of part of your backyard, or you made your backyard by doing these projects.
I was already giving workshops, and of course, when the opportunity was presented to me, I thought, you know, it would be cool to do projects, gardening projects, because when I gave the workshops, I always start, you know, with the basic, depending on the topic, but you share a project so people can be more relaxed, you know, and there would be people that didn't feel confident, didn't have the confidence to take on projects, things like that, even if there were container projects. And so one of the things that I wanted was like, let's do different kind of projects that can be done inside your home, but also in your backyard if you have them. Because I always go with the mentality that not everybody has a backyard, and not everybody has the opportunity, the blessing to have somewhere to go. Some have, you know, their parents or a friend or a community garden, and there are people who has nothing around them and that accessible. And that is something that I, from the very beginning, I knew this makes me feel good. So I wanted people to start like with little things, depending on their budget, depending on the accessibility they have about it. And of course, at the beginning of the book, when we were planning, I was planning the book, I thought about medium places to do the projects, not thinking about my backyard, because I thought, oh, it doesn't look like nice. Again, you have this picture perfect garden, and that you try to emulate, and that was something that I have to overcome. I was have to, you know, hey, you have to change that mentality, because again, you're gonna keep then telling people that, you know, look up just to the manicure garden, things like that.
Right.
So
that was holding you back, basically.
Exactly. You know, and even though I did use it for, you know, little things for agro chic and other things regarding work, but I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna transform this, but I then decided let's put together, different kind of projects that tap into, your whole well-being, but also uh, more directed to your mental health, your physical health, things like that. So as you go through the book, you can see in different chapters, everything goes, it is planned for you to enjoy, and of course your whole well-being are gonna be affected positively, I hope so. But there are projects that are more focused in, to promote your one of your senses, other like, your olfactory senses, other are more addressed for, to look at, and other are more about touching, walking around, barefoot, things like that, things like I like to do actually. So also I thought about things that not necessarily were projects that, oh, I have to have a plant or something like that. I have to garden. There are projects that are more about organizing or turning something for that could be useful for you in your gardening chores, in your gardening activities. For example, I turn these baskets, this basket stand, to use it like an indoor shed, so you can keep your tool things, especially if you are gardening indoors. Sometimes you don't have the space or enough space. So one of the things was like, oh, let's turn this that I was using for other things, and maybe give it, like painted it, put it very nice, and then it can, you can share the space with your other furniture, and it doesn't look like this doesn't belong here. No, it goes with with you, with the things that you do. So I still have that in the living room. So if you come to my home, you will know that I garden, because there's this little corner where I have this basket that I turn into an indoor shed, and
for your tools. That's great.
For the tools, and things like that. And
now,
there's another project that is requires for you to think a little bit more about what is going to happen for the things that you share about your gardening things, your books, your tools, things like that. What do you want them to go once you can't do it them, can do more gardening? Or
right, you mentioned something about organizing. Yeah, so you said earlier that organizing is part of the book for people to kind of, you have questions to guide people through.
Yes, that also.
There are a couple of projects that I want to talk about that I thought were really cute, and so let's start with the Barefoot Garden. What is that?
Yeah. Well, the Barefoot Garden, it is something as I mentioned, I like to walk around barefoot. Of course, we have to tell the audience it is not recommended. It is not recommended.
Not recommended to walk around barefoot, right?
Yeah, but it's necessary sometimes, and that you sit in a corner, take off your shoes. So one of the things that I wanted to do was like have a little patch in a container. In this case, I use a bonsai container, that is flat, is big, that at least if you sit down and you put your bare feet, you can caress the bottom of your feet, and like use it as a transition. Also thinking about people who are not able to go to the backyard, and it is something that you can bring nature to someone that it can't do not have the mobility, And it is something, that also you can encourage. So I was trying also to do projects that can everybody allow everybody to experience it, but adjust it to their own circumstances. And of course, the benefit that it has, being in touch with nature, and to touch, to caress,
Right.
plants, something like that. Yeah.
So it's basically a bowl with a ground cover planted in it that you can put your feet on while you're sitting in a chair. And you can
Yes.
pick it up and move it to any chair if you want to do it.
Exactly.
It's so clever.
Yeah, definitely. Because again, if you have maybe you work with a plant that in this case I use I think I use thyme. Yeah.
Lemon creeping. Oh, lemon thyme. Nice.
Lemon thyme, because I didn't have access to creeping thyme, which is one of the plants that definitely it is recommended. But you can work with that, and then once you finish, you can move the container where definitely it's gonna keep growing, and
right.
If you can have it indoors. But again, you adjust the project to the circumstances.
I love that, because lemon thyme is a great idea, because it releases the scent as you're like playing with it with your toes.
Exactly. You want plants. That's another thing I love to touch. And of course, if I'm going to a garden, thank God that we gardeners, when we go into tours, we are allowed to touch, because I couldn't, when we go to botanical gardens, there are living museums and you're allowed to touch. Thank God.
Yeah.
Because that is, the sense of touch is so necessarily. And, during the pandemic, for example, a lot of people suffer because the lack of touch.
Right.
And nature helped out a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk also about the sofrito garden for a minute.
Yes.
Because sofrito is one of those unique things that is different depending on where it's made.
Yes.
So I was interested to see that you use culantro in your sofrito garden. Tell me about that.
Well, definitely culantro, which is called recao in Spanish here. The common name is recao, and it's part of the base of that flavor, and it has this particular smell, which it is, I don't know, I can't.
It's hard to describe. Yeah, it sort of has a cilantro flavor, but the leaves look more like arugula or like a jagged edge something. I don't know.
Yeah, and people tend to when they think about culantro, they think about cilantro, which is quite different, because the culantro have a long leaf, and the cilantro, are
little leaves,
little ones. And in the sofrito, it is the base of Puerto Rican cuisine, and of course there's sofrito in other Caribbean countries, but depending, as you mentioned, your background or what you have access to, you add to the sofrito.
So what else is in the sofrito garden?
And well, in the project, what I did, and then I could talk a little bit more about the sofrito, but what I did, it was like a deconstruction, try to put together at least 2 of the main ingredients of the sofrito, which is you have the peppers, el ají dulce, the sweet pepper, and then I combine it, because I was going to put them together in a container. I didn't want to put plants that didn't go well. So I was like, well, at least 2 of it, and so I added, like a liter around the peppers, the pepper plant. I added a couple of plants of culantro, and definitely they can grow together very well if you don't have enough space. But at the same time, if you want to grow other things, or you have the space, you can add other areas and name your garden, looking for things that keep things interesting, well, you name the kind of food like you like, for example, a pasta garden or pizza garden, things like that. So you have the main ingredients. So the purpose of this was also to encourage people. You don't have to do the sofrito garden if it's not something that is talks to your background, your cultural background, your taste, but you can do something that reminds you, especially if you're someone who are you move away from your country, or maybe from a state, from another state, and there's things that you wish to have, or that it makes you nostalgic. So food, it is a great way to to celebrate your culture, your cultural background. And that is the main reason of this project, that you can bring a recipe that it speaks to you, maybe a family recipe or something, and at least have one or two of those ingredients that not only makes you feel that home never left you, but also encourage you to cook and give all, and of course share with other people about who you are. And food definitely tells a lot about people. And
like a
so
homesick
definitely,
garden. Not a homesick garden, but like a hometown garden.
a hometown garden, of course. Homesick,
Yeah.
homesick for you, but
Yeah.
it's something that you can celebrate. And by the way, when you are a immigrant from other places, one of the things when you go into community gardens that you have people from different parts of the world, it's the main purpose also is to connect them with what is the new things that they are they don't know by name, because their common name is different in their home country. But once they are start gardening, they know what they have at hand that they can use for their own food. And also it's a connection, because probably they know the certain fruits, vegetable by some names, and then it is something that you can start socializing. It's a way to start putting literally roots in a new place. So this is one of the amazing things, and one of the examples of social well-being through gardening, that you can connect with people. You don't have to speak the same language. You can start sharing plants and of course ingredients, and different dishes, and you taste mine, I taste yours, and then you start a relationship. That's what the main purpose of that, of the Sofrito Garden, to be an inspiration, to be the base, actually, to be the base for great things.
Yeah. Now, you came up with a clever space-saving way to start plants from cuttings, and you called it the propagation station. What's that about?
Well, again, how can you repurpose things or use things that they're not useful anymore for their main reason? For example, here it is a rack, a bathroom, a bathtub rack,
like a shower. It's a shower rack is what we call it.
Yes, exactly.
Here. Yeah.
And I remember I took it away because it has a lot of humidity, so it's not something that it gets
doesn't look good after a while.
Time.
Yeah.
And you don't, but at the same time you don't want to throw it away, because you don't want to keep adding more garbage to the world, and you're looking, okay, what can I do with this? And of course it can hold the shampoo bottles. Well, it can hold glass, and one of the things that I did was like, let's turn this into a wall propagation station. And I painted it, and I reused the salsa glasses and in bottles, and yeah, and it is another fun things to save up space, to recycle, to repurpose, and to
Yeah.
have more fun, more plants, of course, because
Right.
you're propagating.
And it's at eye level, so you can see something, and you know, you can look at it and propagate your sweet potato slips or something,
Yes,
you know, from there. And I think you had some house plants that you were
yes,
propagating in the
yeah, it
pictures.
was uh, by the time that I was doing the projects, definitely I have a lot of pothos and philodendron,
Yeah.
but I use it to propagate other plants and even rosemary, things like that. It is great, and also because it is clear, you use clear glass.
Hmm.
You can see right away the little roots, the rooting, and that gives you hope that you know that you're gonna be planting that in somewhere. And that's another thing that gardening does. It reminds you, you know, that the progression of things, and even and and it gives you also hope, you know, faith in that they're gonna come out something new. You multiply. Oh my God,
I
so
love
many
that.
good things. Yes.
Well, it is tip time. Do you have a favorite tip you'd like to share with the Garden Nerd audience?
Yes, yes.
Tell
I was
me.
looking forward for this segment, this part.
Okay,
Yeah,
go.
one of the things that I recommend is to try to put seating area as much as you can, for different reasons. First, depending on how big your garden is, and how old are you, also your
Right?
stamina, things like that, you need rest. You need spaces where you can rest between gardening chores. And if you have an area that you can sit, you know, 5 minutes, rest, and then go ahead, it is much needed. And especially with the weather, with the how warm temperatures are, you tend to get fatigue as too often.
Sooner.
And
Yeah.
so you do it as a way, you know, to preserve your energy. The more we break, the better we are, and we don't have to stress out, you know,
Hmm.
because again, then you won't be able to enjoy. Also, the it gives you different perspective of your garden. You can see your garden from different areas. One of the I remember I used to have just one sitting area.
Hmm.
So of course, you see your garden from one perspective because you don't have the time to sit 5 minutes and look the other side, things like that. So that for me would be the main suggestion, the main tip. Have little, you know, you don't have to have the whole furniture, you know, the whole sofa, things like that. You know, two seats, you know, for you and someone else's, just one for you,
Hmm.
because you want sometimes to hide from everybody
Right.
and go into
Yes,
your
so
new
often.
garden.
Yeah.
And of course have, if you have the space, you know, a big patio sofa where you can have friends over, things like that, or you can add cushions, patio cushions, but it gives you that sense of immersion in your own garden. You can see what's coming. I was reading a book the other day, and the author remember us like, you know, if you stop at least 5 minutes in certain areas of your garden, wait
Yeah.
for what is coming, and definitely you're gonna see so many
Yeah.
things. You're gonna not only the plants but also the wildlife that comes into your garden. And then also it gives you the opportunity to be creative in terms of, because you are enjoying or trying to enjoy your garden from that point of view. So you know that, oh, if I want to enjoy more here, maybe I have to plant a tree here so I can
Right.
have more shade, or I have to remove certain stems or
Prune.
branches, may I
Yeah,
say.
doing
Um,
pruning.
doing some pruning so
Yeah.
the light can go in, or you can notice that, oh, there's a fruit there that I haven't seen and I have to get it before the birds
Yes.
do. So things like that. So definitely
A
more
chair.
seating areas.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny.
Sections.
My friend David King, who is the first thing he says, he's always said the first thing you need to plant in your garden is a chair, so
Yes,
that you can sit
I
and
agree.
observe. Observation is the biggest thing. It's so important. So thank you for sharing that tip.
Observation.
That's so
Yeah,
good.
observation is abundance, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Perla, for being a guest on the Gardenerd Tip of the Week podcast and for sharing that great tip and all of the projects. I hope people will get your book and look at these really fun projects that they can do. And they're not overwhelming. They're just like perfect sized, and for indoors or outdoors, it's great. So where can people find you? Tell us where they
Well,
can find
definitely the website agrochic.com, which is content in English, in Spanish, but also in my gardenbreak.com,
you.
gardenbreak.com,
mygardenbreak.com.
that
Okay.
there's information in English, of course, and more about the things that I'm promoting, that people
Yeah.
have more garden breaks. Great place. And I look forward to be reading your novel in Spanish, Mi
Oh,
Huerto de
thank
tu
you.
Vida, in my backyard, definitely.
Yay, thank you. And
Yeah,
are you on social media?
in social media, AgroChic, in Instagram, and also at Facebook, so they can AgroChic too. So
Okay,
yeah.
great. All right, garden nerds, you'll find a link to Perla's website this week on gardenerd.com. We'll also link to her social media feed so you can find her, and we'll put a link to her new book available in English and Spanish. That's it for this week. Subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. Visit us for tons of free gardening information at gardenerd.com. Consider supporting us by becoming a Patreon subscriber to support all the free stuff that we do here at Garden Nerd. You'll find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter under Garden Nerd 1, on Facebook as gardenerd.com, and of course, our Garden Nerd YouTube channel. Happy gardening.